Excellent. Alrighty, good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Georges River Local Traffic Advisory Committee on Tuesday the 6th. I declare the meeting open at exactly 10 a.m. The Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which this meeting is being held as that of the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation. Apologies from Senior Constable Matthew Chaplin, George Hervalaris from Steve Camper's office, Adrian Pritchard from Transit Systems. Anybody else?
Hamish from Platform Buses as well.
And Hamish from Buses.
Sorry, hang on, I missed.
I'll send that over to you.
Okay, all good.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Excellent. I'll get someone to accept their apologies. Moved by Liam, seconded by Brian. I advise staff and the public that the meeting is being recorded for minute taking purposes. The order of business is as shown on the agenda and has been made available. Council's Code of Meeting Practice prohibits the electronic recordings of meetings without the express permission of council. Mobile phones must be turned to silent during the meeting. Disclosures of interest from anybody? No. We've got speakers today.
Yes, so we've got 2 speakers registered, but they've just provided their written submission.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so there are 2 speakers registered for today's meeting on the proposed parking restrictions at the Crescent Kingsgrove, and they will both be read by one of the council officers. Or the second speaker is requested to be.
They both ended up.
Excellent. Okay, so they're both on the same issue.
Yeah.
It will be read by one of the council officers. I call for a motion to adopt the minutes of the previous meeting. Moved by Liam and seconded by Brian. Okay, so at this stage of the meeting being 10:02, I advise that the meeting will move into a closed session to consider. Oh, sorry, we're going to do that.
Yeah,
Yes.
submissions. Yeah.
Please, we'll do those submissions first.
So submission in support of proposed time no parking restrictions, the Crescent Kingsgrove, TAC 177-22. I'm a resident of Talwara Street, Beverly Hills, and I have been raising concerns with council about the illegally parked heavy vehicles and the associated noise problems since 2016. During this time, council has responded to these concerns mainly by enforcement action, which has had some effect in reducing the number of heavy vehicles parking on that section of the Crescent, which is near to Talwara Street. While the enforcement action has had some effect in reducing the number of heavy vehicles parking illegally, it has had little effect on reducing the noise from heavy vehicles that arrive or depart overnight. These particular heavy vehicles tend to arrive and depart outside normal business hours, thus eluding the council enforcement officers. I note that the report from the acoustic consultant has provided objective evidence to support the claims by residents that the noise generated by these heavy vehicles is causing regular sleep disturbance. There are 19 properties in Talwara Street that have had exposure to the industrial sites located on the Crescent. I've spoken with the residents of 15 of those properties, all of whom state that they have had their sleep disturbed by the noise from heavy vehicles. One resident who has just sold their house stated that the noise from heavy vehicles was a major factor in their decision to sell. Over the past few years, the annoyance from refrigerated trucks that have parked in the Crescent has been a major source of annoyance. These trucks typically arrive around 11 p.m. and remain until 8 a.m. when they can unload at a nearby facility. During this time, the refrigeration unit is running constantly. When residents have spoken to these drivers and asked them to move and park somewhere else, many of them have responded by saying that there are no signs stating that they cannot park here. Residents have spoken to the owner of the receiving facility about this issue, but have received little assistance in addressing the problem. All of the residents I have spoken to regarding the proposal to install no parking 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. motor vehicles under 3-ton GVM accepted in the Crescent Kingsgrove are strongly in favour of the proposal. If installed, these signs would act as a major deterrent for truck drivers. However, I do have some concern about how council enforcement officers will be able to undertake enforcement action, given that the proposed no parking times are outside normal business hours. Residents would be interested to know how council plans to enforce these restrictions. I strongly urge members of the committee to support this proposal. Gary Miller. Submission number 2 to TAC 177-22, proposed time parking restrictions for the Crescent Kingsgrove. I'm a resident of Talwara Street, Beverly Hills, and I'm strongly in favour of the proposal for no parking 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. motor vehicles under 3-ton GVM accepted restrictions and no stopping restrictions along the Crescent Kingsgrove. Myself and many residents of Talwara Street adjacent to the Crescent Kingsgrove have had many issues with heavy vehicles parking, leaving, arriving, idling, loading, unloading trucks, attaching and detaching large trailers and large refrigerated trucks arriving and idling overnight and during the above mentioned hours. This has caused a lot of stress, not just on myself, but on my whole household. I have 3 young children, and constant disturbances from these heavy vehicles is resulting in lack of sleep almost daily. My young children will wake to these loud sounds, and it is then very hard getting them back to sleep. This then affects their ability to concentrate during the day, and they have broken sleep as a result. We have considered selling our family home as the pressure and stress is just too much at times. We love our street and our neighbours, and it's the last thing we want to do. But with some other residents in the street, as with some other residents in the street, they've had to sell as a result of this constant issue with these vehicles. I believe having these restrictions in place will make a big difference. My only concern is how this will be enforced and monitored outside of business hours. Thank you for taking my submission. Julie, resident Talwara Street, Beverly Hills.
Excellent, thank you. All righty, so we'll go back to at this stage of the meeting being 10:08. I advise that the meeting will move into a closed session to allow consideration of the matters of the agenda. Accordingly, members of the press and public are excluded from the closed session. Has there been any representation not to go into closed? No members in the gallery. The live streaming, please.
Actually, you did go to Parliament, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Now call for a motion to confirm the recommendations from the closed session, moved by Leon and seconded by
Thank you.
Brian. There being no other business on the agenda, firstly, I just want to wish everybody a very happy Christmas and a great new year for next year.
Yeah.
Thank you all for attending our meetings so diligently over the last 12 months, and I look forward to continue working with you all the next 12 months. Thank you.
Sounds good.
I close the meeting at 10:51.
Beautiful.
He runs a good meeting, doesn't he?